Now, one thing I noticed about a lot of these so-called pro-black intellectuals online is that they spend an extraordinary amount of time correcting black people, specifically foundational black Americans, demanding lineage-based policy. As always, these folks focus, not the politicians, not the institutions, not anti-black racism coming from the outside community. Nah, they ain't interested in that. Their energy is almost always directed towards black Americans who are simply asking, what are we tangibly receiving in exchange for our political loyalty? Now, suddenly the question is offensive. Suddenly that question is divisive. Suddenly we're uneducated. Suddenly we don't read. Suddenly we don't understand politics. And then here comes the usual performance. Somebody quotes Thomas Sowell. Somebody starts talking about personal responsibility. Somebody starts using vague phrases like people of color, minorities, and of course, the famous black and brown coalition. You hear those terms constantly, right? But pay attention closely. Whenever anti black racism goes viral outside the community, many of these same voices become extremely silent. When somebody like Ashley Gonzalez says something blatantly anti black and it spreads all over social media, where are the coalition lectures then, right? Where are the long threads? Where are the emotional speeches, finger wagging? Where are the emergency live streams about accountability then? They're gone, you know? But let a black American say, we demand lineage based policy tied to our historical condition in this country. Now everybody suddenly finds their voice then, huh? Now everybody becomes politically passionate. And this is where the conversation needs maturity and honesty. Because no tangibles, no vote does not mean I don't believe in voting. That's dishonest framing. Most black Americans who say that are registered to vote, and most black Americans who say that do understand politics, right? And statistically, black Americans have consistently been among the most loyal Democrat voters in modern American politics. That's just math. Election data showed black voters overwhelmingly supported Democrats again. Meanwhile, other groups had far larger shifts, lower turnout in key areas, and more divided voting patterns overall. So the constant finger wagging towards black voters just don't match up with the numbers. And honestly, this idea that black Americans are somehow politically irrational for wanting policy is strange to begin with. Every serious group in America negotiates politically, and every group asks, what are we getting specifically? Farmers do it, immigrant groups do it, the LGBTQ community does it, labor unions do it, foreign interest groups do it. Everybody practices group politics, but black Americans are somehow expected to participate out of emotion, symbolism, fear, or nostalgia alone. And when black Americans finally say no, we would like policy tied to specifically our lineage and historical experience in this country. Somehow that becomes controversial, and that doesn't even make logical sense. It's nothing radical about expecting a political transaction in exchange for political support. This is literally how politics works. And what's interesting to me is how some people try to shame black Americans out of practicing the exact same political behavior every other group openly practices without apology. And a lot of these online personalities really needed to stop confusing obedience with intelligence. Because repeating establishment talking points word for word does not make somebody intellectually superior. Sometimes it just means they become very comfortable defending a system that gives Black Americans speeches instead of results. And respectfully, some of these folks sound less like independent thinkers and more like bushmeat barrister with a podcast microphone. Now, that part you can look up for yourselves.
The red, white, and blue ain't never been true. Nothing but some lies and these whenever you get through. See, once when they system is